Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero. On today's episode, we feature two powerhouses in the area of personal performance. Chris Majer is the CEO of the Human Potential Project, where he works with soldiers, athletes, and business titans to enable their ability to conquer the constant pressure to perform at their peak. And he's turned the lessons they've learned into systemic solutions for large-scale transformational projects for companies like Microsoft, Intel, and many others. Dr. Tracy Gapin is a board-certified urologist and a fellow of the American College of Surgeons who applies his expertise in epigenetics to create individualized programs to enable top performers to function at optimal levels and maximize their physical and mental longevity. Dr. Gapin is the founder of Smart Men's Health, which is focused on optimizing male performance with personalized programs to help men with sexual health and testosterone levels with proper nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, and mindset. We're excited to have both of these thought leaders on subjects very important to us, and we hope to all of you, and to bring them together to discuss their work and how their missions coincide. Here they are, Chris Majer and Dr. Tracy Gapin.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hi, this is Chris Majer from the Human Potential Project. That's humanpotentialproject.com. And you are having the pleasure of listening to The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yeah, we've got Chris on, and this is an interesting concept that Leanne, my friend Leanne knows Dr. Gapin and I. So Leanne said, hey, why don't you get Tracy and Chris together to talk about the dovetailing of the psychological aspects of performance, which is what Chris specializes in, and bring that over to the epigenetic side of things. So I thought, gosh, that is really good. Like, how do we handle the physiological and the psychological? And, of course, most of you know that Dr. Gapin, Tracy Gapin, has been on the show before with our epigenetics expert, Attila Haidu. So it's good to have Tracy back on. Thank you very much for sitting in with me. And fellas, this is an interesting way to approach these problems. I guess, Chris, give us just a baseline on what you do and how you do it so we can go from there.
Sure. Well, we work with athletes, elite military units, and most of our work these days is corporate executives. And what we're all about is how do we build the practices that enable consistent, and that's the key word there, consistent, high-level, elite performance. And we've been doing our own work and research for 30 years. And we've come up with what we believe is a consistent methodology by which we can do that for both individuals and teams. And what I'm excited about on the show today is to learn what Tracy's been up to, because there's, as you noted, there's a very powerful intersection where the whole mind-body phenomenons come together, and the leading edge is the kind of work that he's been doing. We tend, as you noted earlier in your intro, work more on the psychological, somatic side, and I want to hear how these things are going to blend, because I think this is where the future is.
Yeah, let's. So you guys are having your minds kind of start to blow apart here. At CD Majer, Majer, on Twitter, or you can go to chrismajer.com, thepowertotransform.net for his latest book, or you can go to eliteperformanceprogram.com. I will put all that stuff in the show notes, but Chris deals with high-end people, as he said. And then also, Dr. Gapin is at Dr. Tracy Gapin on Facebook. You can get him on LinkedIn at Tracy Gapin, and you can go to his website, smartmenshealth.com, and there's a lot of stuff there. He wants you to get your edge back. And again, listen to the episode with him and Attila to get a lot on epigenetics. Can you just, Tracy, can you give us just a very short primer on 30 seconds on what epigenetics is, so people can pick up the ball and run with us?
Yeah, sure. So epigenetics is really just the science of lifestyle. And what that means is that there's actually a science behind how we live affects our genetic expression. And so we can look at our nutrition, we can look at our stress levels, our sleep, we can look at how we actually move, we can look at our athletic performance, we can look at our hormones and our detox capacity. And all these aspects of our health, we now have science behind the fact that those influence our performance, our genetic expression, and ultimately how we live and how we can be at our best and live long and healthy.
Chris, when you hear that expression, and I know as a spy that goes in the field, I'm not thinking about the genetic expression of who I am and augmenting and detuning the things that don't accentuate. And I'm just speaking in general terms here. I'm smoking cigarettes. I'm putting in a dip. I'm living off of energy drinks. I'm eating highly preserved foods. I'm putting things into my body that are simply fuel, and it's not dragster fuel. You've dealt with guys like me before. What is that, when you hear him talking about this capability, what does that bring out for you?
Well, it brings out a lot. And then when I hear you talking about what you're doing, that brings out a whole lot of something completely different. So when I listen to him, I go, oh, this is fascinating, because, as I said earlier, we're now exploring the intersection in a not just a amateurish or kind of anecdotal way, the intersection of mind and body, but we've got science. And science is taking us really far deeper than where we've ever been able to go before. So, for example, when we work with athletes or elite performers of any kind, it doesn't really matter, and I do coaching, there's really, 5 things that we're always coaching on, and that's the methodology. And the number one thing is what we refer to as the mood. So the mood is your predisposition for action. And the easiest way to think about it is, the proverbial, is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? It depends on your mood. If you're in a mood of resignation, the glass looks half empty. If you're in a mood of ambition, it's half full. Well, what we now come to understand is that people's biochemistry, their brain chemistry, then some of which is, as he will tell you, genetically driven, helps shape and determine the mood that people live in and literally what their realities are like. And then to what you said, bless you one and all, but if you continue to eat and smoke and eat that kind of crap, that's going to have a deleterious effect on your brain and biochemistry, and eventually going to degrade your mood and your physiological capabilities. And that's pretty much the antithesis of elite performance.
Tracy.
Yeah, great stuff. This is great. I love this. I love what Chris just said. So there's something there. I'm big into tech, and with all my clients, my coaching clients, I really utilize a lot of health technology to maximize performance and to track and manage biometrics to help achieve that. And along with what Chris was just saying, your mood, your mental aspect of performance is so critical. And there's something called HRV, which I think really comes into play here, and that's heart rate variability. And what that is that's where your heart and your mind are actually connected. They're connected as one. And there's actually a neural connection between your heart beat and the variability of your heart rate and your actual mental function, your mental performance, and your whole body performance. And so we could track HRV. It's simply a biometric that there are multiple wearable devices that you can use to track that. And we can use it as a tool to help us optimize our performance by reaching maximum recovery, by helping our what's called our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of our body that helps us relax and rest and digest, so to speak, so that our muscles can recover and our hormones can stabilize and our insulin sensitivity can improve and our immune function can improve. And that's all connected to what Chris is talking about with mental performance and mindset.
So, okay, the guy that's on the side of a mountain trying to eat better things so he doesn't have that deleterious effect on his psychological makeup, there must be also a benefit to eating better things. But also, because you deal in the hyper-specific medicine, Dr. Gapin, how do I, so let's say I'm going to go to deploy. I'm going to go live on the side of a hill somewhere, and I'm trying to account for that and prepare to bring the best things possible. How does one go about that?
Great question. So I personalize my approach to every man or woman, but I mostly deal with men. And what I mean by that is it depends on your genetics. It depends on your labs. It depends on your hormones. It depends on your personal blueprint. And so You asked specifically about nutrition. I would look at your nutrition genetics, and that would help us manage hunger and satiety and manage insulin resistance and manage your macronutrient ratio based on your genetics, and manage your supplementation needs based on the genetics as well. And so it's a personalized, individualized question that, people are always looking for the perfect diet, and there is no perfect diet. There's no absolute perfect thing that everyone should be eating. And I think that's the key, is that there's no one simple answer to that question.
But at the elite level, when I'm asking a lot of my body, and honestly, 36-hour days are very common. 20-hour days are the norm. So does that change how I manage my epigenetic base?
Well, I think the foundation of our health, and you bring up a great point, Pete, that is so common in all the men I see, and that is poor sleep. And taking care of your body means resting appropriately as well. And so sleep is so critical, and managing stress is so critical. And so one of the things that I focus on with men especially is their sleep patterns. And, the wearable technology is one way that we can really achieve that as well. But if you're working 20 hours a day, then you're not taking good care of your body, and there's no way you're going to be at optimal levels when you're doing that.
Chris, when you hear about Dr. Gapin's work in hyper-specialized things, you also know elite athletes, and these guys are highly regimented in what they eat. They have access to chefs and meal plans that are world-class, except for they're not necessarily based in epigenetic science. So as someone is trying to find an edge, which all those guys are, is this something that you can bring to the table to them? I mean, is this, and does this translate to someone who's a mid-level manager with a lot of inertia behind their career and they're headed up?
Well, those are two different questions, but let's take the easy one first. Your world-class and elite-level athletes, the answer would be absolutely yes. This would be something they would, and to some extent, I would imagine probably already are interested in, for the very reason you said. They're looking for that little bit of an edge, because at that level, all we're talking about between winning and also-ran is, hundreds of seconds and, inches, not a half a mile. So yeah, that's the world they live in. They're, if they've got any sense about them, they're already looking into that and probably have been dialing him up. And if they're not, they're calling him while we speak. The more interesting challenge is the second guy you said. So it's not the guy who's climbing up the mountain or in the NFL or, Marine Force Recon guys that are the bulk of the issue out there. It's that mid-level manager. And he's been at his job for 10 or 12 years. He's working. He better not be working 20 hours a day, or he doesn't have a family life, but he's trying to balance, a work and a family life. He's put on 15 pounds over the last decade, keeps telling himself he's going to start that exercise program. Doesn't seem to happen. And now he's 40 years old, feeling a little sluggish, and he starts falling into, I'm going to go back to this word mood again. He starts falling into a mood of resignation, like, oh, Lord, this is never going to get any better, et cetera, et cetera. That's the place where there's vast possibilities. And those are the guys that I would encourage even more so than the elite athletes who are already down the road to come and take advantage of what Dr. Gapin's working on. Because if he does his thing with them, then we've got a platform that makes it much, much easier to build on, to get these guys' bodies and eventually, more importantly, their entire lives back for them. Because, let's face it, I don't think anybody grew up as a little kid going, oh boy, I want to sit in a cubicle for 30 years.
There you go.
Tracy, I don't want to hog all the questions. What questions do you have for Chris?
God, this is great stuff. We could talk for a while on this. So Chris, tell me, how do you start with these guys who are looking to achieve, optimal performance levels? What's kind of the first step you take with them on achieving, mindset when it comes to overcoming, self-limiting beliefs and kind of negative thoughts?
Well, you just said a couple of important things there. So the short answer is we start with their story, because the story of what are they up to? It's like, for the sake of what are you after elite performance? In many cases, the question is, it's like, are you running from something or towards something? Do you have some big ambition? Do you have some big goal? You want to win a medal, but then what? We need to get a good sense of, what's the story? What are we up to here? Because as you well know, as human beings, we all live in stories about ourselves, and many of the stories are negative. And so then we begin to work on the phenomenon. We don't go too far down this road because I'm not trying to train them to be philosophers, but we teach them a little bit about the way that we as human beings construct our realities out of language. Because you listen to people talk about themselves. Oh, I can't do that. Well, really? Who said so? Well, so you get into the history a little bit. We could begin to disassemble some of the historical story. You replace that with a new belief system, and that, of course, takes much more work to do than it does to explain. And then we get a map for how we're going to get from where we are to where you want to go. And if we were to combine that with the work that you're doing, I can say with certainty that we could definitely shorten the amount of time that it takes to get from 15 pounds overweight, sluggish, not excited about my life or career to Yahoo, I'm on top of the world.
Sure.
That story part, these things kind of go in eras. Remember when, Rocky would drink raw eggs and that was how you got into shape?
Uh-huh.
Or you remember when wheat germ was a thing? Like you got to have that wheat germ.
Yeah, wheat germ.
Yes.
And wheat
so
germ
these
oil.
Stories.
Yeah.
What's that?
And wheat germ oil. Yeah. Well, there's the fads. To me, those are more like nutritional fads, come and go. I'm talking about the deeper story that people live in about who they are in the world.
Yeah.
We take on these negative beliefs very early on in life, primarily when we're little kids, and some adult says something, oh, you'll never be able to do this, or you want to be a football player, that's a dumb idea. You're just a little punk,
Right.
and you're not able to understand early on in life that guy's a jerk. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. It's like, oh, it was an adult. He must know. And then all of a sudden now you've got this monkey on your back. And, well, he said I'll never be able to. And, you don't rationally sit there and listen to that every day, but it weighs on you at your unconscious level. And if you don't kind of either illuminate or displace those things, they affect the way that you live your life. And pretty soon what you find is you got some 45-year-old who's being run by a 6-year-old. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Tracy?
Yeah, that's fascinating stuff. I see that all the time. I see guys who have negative self-limiting beliefs, and that mindset is one of the early things that I think it's really important to overcome. So I love what you're doing, Chris. I love how you describe that, and the story part of it is huge. And I like to focus in the very beginning, the first time I meet with a guy, on his why. Like, what is your why? What is your main reason for being with, working with me, being here, your main purpose on this earth? What is your main why? What do you live for? And every guy is different. Some guys, like you said, they're training for a certain, certain activity, or they're trying to lose 20 pounds, or they want to get off their diabetes medications, or they want to have sex with their wife, or they just want to actually feel like a man again. And, every guy's different. And I think their story, like you said, is so critical. So I love that. Yeah, that's great.
I like what he's saying there, and at the risk of kind of treading into some delicate territory here, I think it's important for men to be willing to, take time out and have these conversations, at least with themselves, because as you don't need me to tell you, the whole notion of masculinity is seemingly under fire here from every quarter these days. And I think it's not at all inappropriate for us all to step back and go, well, what is it to be a man in this world? It isn't about, trying to be women and feel everything the same way they do, but it isn't about being, these kind of ridiculous macho jerks either. So where is it that we show up and face up and stand up in the world? And whatever it isn't about being 30 pounds overweight, self-inflicted diabetes, etc. We may not be clear about what it is, but we're really damn clear about what it isn't.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. There's this social evolution or battle that's going on right now about masculinity and what is it, and this term toxic masculinity is gaining traction, and I think it's a slippery slope, and we have to remember that there is a distinct difference between men and women, and that comes to not only physiology, but psychology as well, and mindset. And I see so many guys who are feeling emasculated and like they're not a man anymore. And a lot of that's hormones, a lot of it's nutrition, a lot of it's mindset. And so I think, a systems-based approach where we can deal with every aspect of it. What Chris is dealing with, the mindset part of it, but also the nutrition part of it, and the detox, and eliminating endocrine disruptors, which are crushing testosterone, and sleep, as you mentioned, Pete, and stress levels and hormones, and they all interplay together. So it's fascinating.
Endocrine disruptors. Please continue to expand on that.
Sure. So endocrine disruptors, or estrogenics, are toxins or compounds in our environment that are that's crushing our testosterone levels. And so there's a great book out there called Estrogeneration, which I would highly recommend. I think it was written by Jay Anthony. Endocrine disruptors are found in our drinking water. They're found in plastics like BPA, and phthalates are found in our cosmetics, our sunscreens, our shampoos, our laundry detergents. It's found in the herbicides and pesticides that's sprayed on the crops of the foods that we eat. It's in the cows, the meat that we eat, and the milk that we drink. It's ubiquitous. There are studies that have shown that there's detectable estradiol levels in our drinking water. And what all these chemicals are doing, whether it's BPA or phthalates, or even soy has been shown to do this, or birth control estradiol, these chemicals all crush our testosterone levels. And we are suffering through a testosterone epidemic where levels are down about 30% over the last 30 years. And so I think minimizing exposure to endocrine disruptors is critical, as well as optimizing our detox systems to help us overcome and get rid of them.
Well, Tracy, say a little bit more, though, because I think there's an essential point that needs to get made here. So what if testosterone levels are down 30%? What does that mean in terms of?
Yeah, great point. So there are so many side effects of low testosterone. So, guys come to see me. It's funny that the thing that brings guys in my office more than anything is sexual dysfunction. So they come in for ED, but it's so much more than that. It's the mindset thing that you've talked about, Chris, with it affects guys' mood, their mental stability, their emotional stability. It affects their libido, their sexual desire, their desire to work, their desire to work out, their desire to exercise. It affects their motivation levels and their confidence levels. I see so many guys who just have no confidence and they look like a shell of a man. And this is all testosterone. And nothing that I've just mentioned even touches on the physiologic aspects of, obesity and insulin resistance and cardiovascular disease. And there's been studies that show increased mortality with low testosterone. So the negative consequences of low testosterone are huge, that are really important that we address in all these men who are looking to optimize.
So let's talk a little bit to some of these guys that, they're sitting in a cubicle, they're 40, they got those 15, if they're lucky, pounds, and, just that amount. But how do these guys, I want to make it accessible, like that Chris is saying, you can understand your story, you can get that glass to be half full and readjust how you look at it. But Chris, where does one start if they're feeling like come on, how many middle-aged men are thinking, I don't need a spark, right? Like they need something to get going. How does one get up off the couch and start just simply with something they can constantly repeat and start to get a little better?
Well, I think the first thing is you literally have to get up off the couch, right? Nobody's going to come and get you. The answer will not be found, eating Cheetos and watching, late night TV. So the first thing is get off your ass and get moving. And I mean that literally, even if it's you just start walking a little bit every day. And then to Tracy's point, not everybody can probably, reach out, come make appointments with him, but you can go get a blood test and find out, are you a low T kind of guy? Because to his point, I can do all the stuff that I do and it works, but it's fighting, it's an uphill battle when I'm fighting against, these guys who are in kind of a mental fog. They don't have any energy. They don't have any ambition. They feel lost. They feel despair. And the one thing Tracy didn't mention, because and maybe understandably, is the suicide rate among middle-aged guys is dramatically on the rise, way out of kilter with what it's been historically. And I don't have any evidence to support this other than my intuition, but I'm confident that it has something to do with this plague of low testosterone, which makes all the work that we're doing just much more difficult to do. So you've got to get, started with something, and it comes with, you've got to get what we call to the Popeye point. So you guys are both old enough to remember Popeye the Sailor.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I am what I am.
Well, no, you're close. But the storylines were always the same. So Popeye's minding his own business, walking down the street with olive oil. Brutus or Bluto comes, beats him up, pulverizes him, and then what finally happened?
He takes all he can stand, and he can't stand no more, and he squeezes a can of spinach.
That's it. There's the line right there. That's all I can stand because I can't stand no more. You got to get to that point. It's not because your wife's on your case or this or that or the other. That's all I can stand because I can't stand no more. Mm-hmm. I'm done being this, portly guy sitting in the couch. I'm done being stuck in this cubicle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like I said, no one's going to come and rescue you. You got to man up and start your journey and get off your ass and get into action just because you can't take it anymore. And until you get to that point, all you're going to do is literally wallow around and feel sorry for yourself. That won't help.
Yeah. And Tracy, same thing to you. Obviously you have your consultation that people can do with you, but what if they can't get to Florida where you are? How does one get up off the couch and squeeze that spinach can?
I think it goes back to what Chris is talking about with their story and their why, and what is the motivation behind doing something. Guys don't come to see me, they don't call me because they want a testosterone level of 800, or they want a hemoglobin A1C of 4, or they want to weigh 170 pounds. It's not that. It's there's something missing that they want. There is some pain point that they want to overcome. And for most guys, I see it's sex. Most guys that end up coming to me, it's because they want to have better sex with their wife, or they want more confidence, and they've reached the point where they're willing to do something about it. And so it's a little bit of a catch-22 where they've lost motivation, they've lost will, they've lost direction, but they know they want it. And so again, it's taking that first step, and then once you start to make a few little changes, then that becomes bigger changes, and that's where you start to really see some huge impact.
And let me add one more thing to that, because this is where I think as guys, since we're now on this topic, we tend to let ourselves down. Is we live in this story that we're tough, manly men, and we'll get this all figured out and take care of it on our own. And that's why most guys fail at this stuff. Women are different about this. They'll get together, they'll get groups going, they'll do whatever. We need to start thinking about, I need a team to get me through this, right? Yep. So, get yourself a workout partner. Get yourself, some guys that, you can kind of literally bare your soul with and go, hey, look I'm 45 years old. This is not my wonderful life. I want to get myself on a different track. Who's with me? Mm-hmm. Right. And then you've got a support system, because that's essential to all this stuff. I coach entrepreneurs a lot, and say, look, nobody ever made a giant, wonderful, successful company by themselves. That's a complete myth, mm-hmm. right? They did it by having a great team around them. And the same thing is true here. You need a team to support you, and it's not going to be the end of the world if you just go out and ask people for some help. Yeah. People want to help. They want to be involved. And what you'll find immediately, particularly with guys, is they're like, oh, thank God somebody finally said something. Yeah, I'm with you. Let's go do it.
Yeah, in a tactical setting, you've got 3 basic responses: fight, flight, or freeze. And it seems like in our middle age, we start freezing a lot more because we're just overwhelmed by what's out there instead of taking some kind of action. As we look at these 2 things, right, the psychological and the physiological, we know that they intersect. But which one, and maybe this isn't the right way to look at this, but which one is the cart and which one is the horse? How do you rank order these things so you can get an actual running start at this and get going?
My take is I don't think you can. We, Western society, we in this case, have created this, I think, artificial distinction that mind and body are separate.
Okay.
And they're not, and that, moods and emotions and that sort of stuff are psychological things, and nutrition and epigenetics are physiological things. And it isn't that way, right? We are, as a human being, a unity of mind and body. And we tend to think in the West that the body is just a transport vehicle for the mind. And again, it's not that way. So there's this inextricable connection between the way that my mood is going on a particular day and what I've been eating for the last few days, and what my genetic predisposition is in certain areas, and what my nutritional and biochemistry makeup is on for the next little while. You cannot separate those two things. So to say,
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
Reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner,
or at JohnLG69.
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
you cannot separate those two things. So to say, where do we start? You start, with everything all at the same time, because that's the only way it works.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's a systems-based approach that I like to emphasize, and I think what Chris said really hits the nail on the head, that they're all intertwined, and your body and your mind and your heart and your physiology and your nutrition and your sleep and your hormones, it all intersects. And to think that one is more important than the other, I think is a disservice, is not accurate, and I think you have to really focus on everything. So I love what Chris said.
Tracy, what state of mind do these guys come in? You said that they're not trying to, get to certain physiological benchmarks. They're not trying to get to 170 and everything. But describe who this person is that comes in. It's like, I just got to get better. Give me an idea of who they are, what problems are they encountering, so we can all kind of understand. I mean, a lot of us are looking in the mirror. We want to see if what we're looking at is the guy you're sitting across from your couch.
Right, and that's a great question. It's funny how these guys all have the same relative kind of picture. They're middle-aged guys, so between, I'd say, 40 and 60 or so. And they've all been fairly successful in life. They have a well-developed business, and they're married, and they have some kids who are, maybe in middle school or high school or on their way to college. And, their life looks good on the outside, but on the inside, they're dying, and there's something not right. They're tired all the time. They can't focus at work. Their mental acuity is not what it used to be. They just feel off. They feel like they've lost their edge. Their sex life has diminished, where they're not having sex nearly as much as they used to, and they almost don't even have the drive to. They don't desire it as much as they used to, and they don't really know why. He can't work out as much as he did before.
How much of that is low T, and how much of that is life?
It all, it's all of it. I tell you what, we all have busy lives. We don't all work 20 hours a day like you do, but we all have busy lives, and we're all, consumed and busy in whatever our professional lives are, and then trying to balance that with our personal lives. But there comes a point where you have to really put a priority on your health. And when we get to this age, I am my own avatar in a way, in that when we get to this age, our bodies just don't react like they used to. We don't recover like we used to after we exercise or train. We can't eat the same junk that we used to eat when we were younger, and you can't get by with sleepless nights, or with going 2 hours of sleep like you could when you were younger. And all those aspects of your health, they build up. And focusing on the mindset of it is huge as well, where a lot of these guys, they have negative beliefs like Chris has talked about, and that overcomes them taking any action as well. And so it's a real problem, and a lot of guys, especially in their 50s, are going through this same sort of picture, where it takes an overhaul. it takes, helping them get their edge back, I like to say, by focusing on every aspect of their health. And that's, nutrition, sleep, stress, mindset, movement, detox, hormones.
Did you say dress?
We need to address.
Oh, a dress. Okay.
Yeah, and he didn't mean they were wearing a dress.
No, but I thought he meant like how their appearance external or something.
Yeah. We need to get them dressed up properly.
That's right. Well, it does manifest that way.
Right.
One of the things that we look at, and first of all, what he said, is the notion today, because a guy who's 50, 25 years ago didn't have all of the technology and all the stuff that's now out there today. And so one of the things that we work on, and again, you find Tracy and I right exactly in agreement here, is the story of why. What are you up to? What are the things that are most important? And then you got to go farther with that. And I say, everybody talks about, well, I'm too busy. And I'm like, well, you're too busy doing what? So let's stop and look at what are the 3 to 5 biggest commitments in your life. And, people will almost invariably say family first, and then whatever it is they say. And I said, okay, so here's these 3 or 5 things. Now, let's take a look at your calendar for the last 2 weeks, and let's match what you've been doing versus what you say are the biggest commitments in your life. And invariably what you'll find is you're spending a whole lot of time doing stuff that's not on your commitment list. So the diagnosis there is people tend to get what I call over-involved and under-committed. So I'm involved in all sorts of stuff, so my attention and time and energy is scattered, but the things that I say I'm really committed to aren't getting the priorities that they need, and thus, not surprisingly, my commitments don't ever get realized. And that's an important step for people, as let's take some of the clutter out of here, separate signal from noise, and let's see what is it that's really important to you. Like, no kidding, what's important to you. And the way we find out is, what are you spending your time on? As I tell people, they say, oh, I'm committed to this and I'm committed to that. And I say, no, you're not. They go, well, no, I am. I said, no, you're committed to talking about it. You're not committed to doing it. Because if you were committed to doing it, you'd be doing it, right? So if you want to know what it is you're committed to, look around. What you have produced is exactly what you're committed to. Most people are committed to looking good, being right, and playing it safe. Right? That's not how you get to be an elite performer at anything.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things, too, 25 years ago, if you were 50, you likely drank too much. For sure, almost, half of them smoked too much. We're surviving longer and healthier into our 50s. I mean, I read a lot about history, and it's like people would die from heart attack and cancer at a rate that exponentially exceeds what's possible today. Are we getting better at being older fast enough? Is this part of the thing, is that we just haven't mapped this out as a society?
Well, I would say yes. We haven't mapped it out.
Okay.
It's not just that we're getting older at 50. We've got people living well into their 90s.
Yeah, right.
And the notion that, as a guy, in the old days, you retired at 65 and the vast majority were dead within the next 5 years.
Right, yes.
That's what Social Security was all based on. Well, not working that way anymore. Improvements of healthcare, medical attention, and so forth. You got people living well into their 90s. And the challenge, and I think for all of us as guys, is, there's no stopping getting old. I don't care about getting old. It's getting decrepit that we want to try and avoid. So There's no point in having somebody wheel you around in a chair for 10 years, while you're drooling down the side of your face. That's not living.
Right.
So how do we get and make ourselves vital for that? So it's not just living longer that we need to be figuring out how to do, but part of what makes men's lives is we need to be up to something. We need to be able to be productive, to be acknowledged for what we're producing. And if you're kind of put out to pasture, if you will, at 65, let's face it, there's only so much golf and fishing a guy can do and maintain his sanity.
Yeah, ditto. I would agree with everything Chris said. I would add 2 things. Number one, that I absolutely agree that every guy needs a purpose. You need a, going back to the why thing, what is your why? You need a purpose, a direction in life for a man to feel like a man. Absolutely. I see that consistently, that, guys need that direction and that purpose and working towards something. And the second point I would go back to is what you said about living long and not being decrepit, and I call it health span. And I actually can't take credit for this. I heard this at a conference I went to, an anti-aging conference. But I think it's really important to focus on that. It's not about living longer. We don't want to live longer. We want to live longer and healthy as well. And so I think health is really key, is to live long and healthy. Otherwise, like you said, what the hell is the point? So.
Yeah, what the hell's the point, right? I don't want to live to 90 if I'm, not able to actually live while I'm doing it. You guys agree on everything. So
I know it's been an engaging debate, except for one little detail.
I agree.
What do you guys?
Yeah.
Where is the disagreement, though? I mean, obviously, okay, we want to live better. We want to have a purpose. We need to take care of our body in an epigenetic fashion and use these systems. But where are we disagreeing? Where do you guys think there might be some healthy debate?
Well, let me get this straight. We agree that we want to live longer, live better, take care of our bodies, take care of our minds, and you want us to argue about that?
That's great.
Boy, what is this, Fox News or something here?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Wait, hang on. Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, there goes my mood.
Yeah. Let's get into it. No. Okay, so yeah, you're right. These are universal values.
Yeah.
As someone decides, okay, I'm going to get off the couch, and they're a person of modest means, maybe they can't afford a $25,000 a year life coach to get them going. But what does that person do to see, like that person who's like another cut down, where they're struggling to even get by, and they're worn down by life?
They get on Amazon and buy my book.
It's only $22,000.
Yeah, exactly. That's the de minimis entry level move that you can make.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, go into your book a little bit, though, so these guys can hear it and understand what we're talking about, and we'll do the same thing for you, Tracy.
Sure.
Well, the book is called The Power to Transform, and it's literally about how you transform your life. And it starts with exactly what we've been talking about here. How do you take apart the story and understand the nature of the linguistic elements that make up a story? Because once we see that as human beings, we literally live in language, and you can get that, I can change the story. It's not some fixed and concrete kind of thing. All sorts of possibilities open, but you really got to get it, not just hear me talk about it and go, oh yeah, what he said. And then it goes through what I call the universal performance principles. We worked for 30 years with athletes, soldiers, executives all over the world. And what we found was that they all lived by the same set of principles. It's not like they had some big meeting and articulated them, but each in their own way came to see that things like accountability, trust, honesty, integrity, commitment, the notion that we always have a choice, were driving the way that they thought. This was the way they oriented themselves to the world. And when you do that and take a different worldview, not only does your mood change, but your predisposition for action gets very different. And then at the last part of the book is all about, and as Tracy said before, it's the who are you? It's what we call being a stand in the world. What do you stand for? And it takes you through the process of articulating that, because most guys, frankly, never really sat down and thought about it. They went to school, they got a job, they got married. Next thing you know, you got a couple of kids, and they end up on the couch, either in mine or his office at 45 or 50 going, who am I? How did I get here? Right. And it's great to take a time out and go, well, all right, who am I? What am I up to? What, for the sake of what am I doing all this stuff? And once you get that sorted out, everything else starts to fall into place. So the book is a simple, low-cost way of taking you through that entire process.
Okay. Dr. Gapin, what's your pitch to us?
Yeah, so I'm actually working on a book that will be hopefully coming out later this year, and a lot of it focuses on what I call the Edge Blueprint. And my program that I offer to men is the Edge Blueprint, how to get your edge back. And what I focus on is a combination of traditional allopathic, regular medical practice, which involves labs and prescription medications where needed. But along with that, I employ epigenetics, and that includes creating a personalized genetic blueprint, looking at someone's genetics and using that information, leveraging those results to help create a personalized, tailored plan to ultimately to what they're trying to achieve. I also use a lot of technology. So I'm a huge believer in using technology to track and manage our biometrics. And that allows us to be even more precise at what we're trying to achieve. And so I look at things like your sleep. I look at your HRV, or heart rate variability, we talked about briefly before. Look at activity level, look at your heart rate, look at all kinds of things related to stress and how we can help mitigate your stress, or at least help you become more resilient to stress. And I put all that together and I create a personalized plan for guys that looks at what I consider really the 6 major aspects of health. And that is your nutrition, your sleep, your stress levels, your hormones, your detox, and your movement. And I would add mindset as a key focus to the entire thing as well. So putting all that together, I call it the Edge Blueprint.
Yeah, we've had, so one of the guys that co-hosts with me a lot is a guy named Pete Koch. And you guys have likely seen him before. He's an actor. He also was a football player, but he was the Swede in Heartbreak Ridge. And he's just this massive defensive end of a man, but he's never for even 2 seconds been out of shape in his whole life. And he's this really motivating guy, and he talks, about the physicality portion of it and how most of us are under-exercised, and you want to say, I have no time for exercise, but his buddy, Dr. Huizenga, who works on The Biggest Loser, he says, my 90 minutes of exercise makes me more productive the rest of the day than I would be without it. And it's just those kind of things where you realize, those 90 minutes, they're going to pay off later on, not only today, when I'm still, being more performance-based, but 10 years from now when I can still do this stuff. It's because it turns out this stuff doesn't get easier as you get older. My brain only works, so good if I've beat up on it for the last 45, 50 years,
It's interesting. I see a lot of guys in their 90s in my medical practice, and the universal theme, the universal pattern that I see is exercise. And you're not going to live long and healthy if you're not exercising. It's just a matter of fact. Doesn't matter what you supplement with, doesn't matter what you eat. If you're not exercising, forget it.
Really?
So, what he said.
Of your 6, you think that obviously they're all elements, but the exercise piece is really where the root of your work needs to be.
I again would emphasize that it takes all of that. In the guys that I manage, I would say sleep and stress are probably the 2 biggest things to address first, because those are the things that I find most troublesome. But exercise is just as, if not more important than those. But I think I would say most of the guys that I'm working with, they already know that. It's just getting them to actually do it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So let me dovetail on that. So because once again we find ourselves in violent agreement here. So I get these guys and they live in this story of, well, I can't. I'm too busy. I can't exercise. And I said, and to be blunt about it, my first response is very simple: bullshit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not that you can't. You choose not to. And so we're not going to let you live in some story like there's some big force out there in the universe that's preventing you from working out.
Right.
That's not the case, right?
Yeah.
You're making different choices. And so let's own the fact that your priority is sitting on the couch, watching whatever, instead of taking care of your body, which is the ultimate way that you're going to take care of your future. And to his point, that's why I said literally when you asked me what's the first step, it's get off your ass and get into motion, right? Because when people live in this mood of resignation is the space of no possibilities. There's nothing moving. So you literally need to get up and get moving. Put one foot in front of the other. And what that does, even incrementally at that level, is it starts to, as he has said, change your brain chemistry, right? You're setting off all sorts of biochemical reactions as a result of simply the physiological act of moving. And if it's just as simple as walking around the block, walking, whatever it is, get it going. It's got to start with exercise, because that's the key to everything. And then at the same time, people come to me and they say, well, what's the most important thing? What's my most useful tool when I'm wanting to lose weight for working out? And I said, it's easy. It's the fork. Put it down.
There you go.
Yeah. Listen, you guys, this is awesome. You covered a lot of ground. I don't want people to, I think we've covered what we need to cover with this so they understand. Get up, get moving. Get onto the website and go talk to Dr. Gapin. He'll give you a consultation at smartmenshealth.com. Hit him on LinkedIn at Tracy Gapin, or on Facebook at Dr. Tracy Gapin, Dr. Tracy Gapin. Also, listen to his earlier episode that he did with Attila and I, because they talk about epigenetics, which is already fascinating. Like what we're learning about how we get to care for ourselves, and hyper-specific, like Attila's working on curing your specific brand of your cancer. And it's incredible what's happening there. And then, of course, Chris's stuff is at CD Majer, Majer, on Twitter. His website is chrismajer.com. thepower2transform.net is the latest book. And eliteperformanceprogram.com. This is where you get these guys. You hear them talking about things, and if you need help, these guys know how to do it. They know how to help you, and I'll see if I can get them to come back on and partner and have some more conversations, because it seems awfully simple, fellas. Get off the couch, quit watching America's Top Model, and go for a walk, go for a swim.
That's right. Go for a walk, go for a swim, and then date America's Top Model.
There you go.
All right, thank you, fellas.
All right, thank you.
Pete.